welcome to Make in India. I'm Shereen, Bhan, and we're in conversation with the global CEO of Siemens, Joe Kaeser. Joe, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. You've become quite the regular visitor to India. We had you on CNBC TV 18 during your last visit, which I believe was about 6 months ago. You've met the Prime Minister 4 times already. What's driving the excitement about India today?
Well, first of all, I mean, we've been here for more than 100 years, and the excitement has always been similar. Today, I think it's just a different period of time. You know, there is a Prime Minister, there's a new government, there is a very clear vision on what this country is going to do and what it deserves to do, what its people should be and have a better life. So it's a very exciting time, and it could, you know, it could actually mark a very, very important milestone in the recent history of the country.
You know, speaking of important milestones, you've committed another €1 billion of investment into the Indian market. You've invested $2 billion over the last 10 years in India. So I would imagine this billion is going to be spread across over the next 5 years?
Well, it depends on the opportunity. It could be earlier, it could be all the way up to 2020, which has had our global managing board here meeting in India. We listened to our people, what they had to say, and the discussion and the presentation was full of opportunities. So I'm very, very excited about it, and I really like to spend the money because the opportunities are there.
But what opportunities in specific is your India team telling you about? Because if one were to look at the numbers, it's not reflecting in the numbers just yet. You know, there are concerns being raised by shareholders in terms of the capex recovery, which is yet to take off. There are concerns about Siemens valuations in India. At this point in time, what are the specific opportunities that your India team is telling you about?
I'm looking more at the opportunities of the country, and it's a nature of opportunities that they haven't happened yet, so we need to get them and need to be, you know, doing a successful conversion. Look, if I just go through the priorities which the Prime Minister has laid out, from a reliable, affordable, sustainable energy policy through infrastructure, healthcare, making in India, which is manufacturing and engineering, basically that's exactly the sweet spot of our company. That's how we have organized it, that's how we've been successful over the years. And Siemens is a very global operation, and that's also the beauty for Siemens India, for Siemens Limited as a what you said, public company, because Siemens Limited India can bank on the global support of our company.
Right.
So that's why I guess the opportunities are there, and we have a lot of optimism to get them.
Okay, you know, let me just take that point of optimism forward, because clearly you do believe in the India story, which is why the entire global board of Siemens is here. But again, if I were to go back to the numbers, and I was just looking at the kind of earnings performance that Siemens has actually seen, earnings have fallen by 10%, and I'm talking about the FY09 to FY15 period, so this is not 1 or 2 quarters that we're talking about. The order inflow continues to look weak. Even in the last quarter, there is no visibility in that sense of orders really picking up. What is the sense that you're getting in terms of actual order inflow? Because revenue visibility is now a question mark that analysts are talking about.
Well, first of all, if you talk about business in India, this is not only about Siemens Limited, this is about how we can support the market in India from a global perspective. So that's, I think, is a big difference. Secondly, if we really look at the numbers of Siemens Limited India, I think they also have been reflecting, you know, the course of investment, infrastructure investment in the country. And now with the new vision of the Prime Minister, with the new management team in Siemens India, we are exactly at that inflection point that we have been turning around the growth momentum, and we expect actually the company to grow again, like for like, in 2015, and we expect that to continue going forward.
What kind of growth are you anticipating in India? And of course, in the third quarter, we've actually seen your numbers look better on account of the margin expansion, and that is part of your strategy, which is not to go after low-margin businesses, but high-margin businesses, I imagine. But what is the kind of earnings growth that you expect in the Indian market?
If we look at top-line growth, this is definitely about infrastructure and healthcare. This is where the biggest opportunities are there. And we still do believe that in terms of energy management, decentralized energy management, we can do a lot to help the country to be a reliable provider also of electricity and affordable power.
But what gives you that confidence in the power sector in India? Because if you look at what's happening across state-run discoms or state-run power companies at this point in time, the situation is in shambles. In fact, the central government is now looking at possibly another bailout as far as the sector is concerned. So what gives you the confidence and the optimism?
Look, there's a saying, and it says, the night is always darkest before dawn. And this is also about, if you lead a global enterprise, you always need to look at the opportunity. And we've just completed 2 major projects in India for combined cycle gas power plant with our very good customer Torrent. And if we look at the power sector still, there is a lot of opportunities, be it coal-fired power plants, but even more importantly, what we are looking into is how can we provide a meaningful mix of energy from renewable and gas-fired or steam, or coal-fired steam plants.
So where do you
about
really
the energy mix, much more than just going into energy generation.
So where are you really seeing or anticipating that you are going to see the order inflows coming in at this point in time? What is the team on the ground telling you?
The opportunities are first and foremost on the energy management. That's about transmission, distribution, and smart grid, managing the energy. The other opportunity still is in the area of drives, motors and drives, because an infrastructure needs electricity. Manufacturing needs automation, and that's about drives, motors, and manufacturing automation. So that's where the opportunities are, and we call them so-called short cycles, where they will materialize earlier than the long cycle business of energy.
So, a final question as far as the India business is concerned, but before I talk to you about what's happening in the rest of the world, and it's a challenging environment there as well, for the benefit of your shareholders who are looking at the kind of earnings performance and valuations, forget the next 3 or 4 quarters because you believe in the India story in the long term, but take us through what you expect your performance to be over the next 5 years, for instance, from the Indian market. You've, as I said, dropped earnings by 10% CAGR FY09 to FY15. What is it that you anticipate by 2020, for instance?
Well, the point is that the agenda of the Prime Minister and the government, energy, infrastructure, healthcare, and manufacturing and engineering, is exactly the focus point of our global strategy on where we are good at, what we have been doing well over the last decades, if not centuries, and that's exactly the focus point that we invest in India.
Okay, and what is that going to mean when you say Make in India is going to go beyond Make in India to make it happen in India? What does that mean exactly, both in terms of the kind of people that you're likely to hire, and also perhaps as far as inorganic growth is concerned?
Make in India, the concept has been first and foremost about manufacturing. India has been already very successful in the software environment, and also, of course, in cars, automotives, and things like that. There's been very, very strong entrepreneurs in the country. So it is about manufacturing. But if you really look in today's modern world, a society which wants to grow, first is to provide the infrastructure. Then you go into manufacturing. So manufacturing in a global scale was that global companies bring manufacturing to a country. That was the old days in a way. Today you bring manufacturing and local content in engineering. So you not only manufacture goods and products, but also engineer and develop products local for local. So local market first, and based on that one, then we go what we call local to global. So this is all about export. And the more a country and an economy is able to export, the more competitive it gets. So it is about making India, but also develop in India, and then export it to the global world.
So what is the plan as far as develop in India is concerned, which really means R&D in India, and then using India as an export destination or as an export hub? Is that on the cards anytime soon?
Well, as I said, first opportunity, second to make good on opportunities, and then also make sure that the earnings and the growth pattern shows that in the P&L. We have about 16,000 people already working for Siemens in India. More than 4,000 of them are engineering people, people who develop, write software, and that will also be the focal point that we're going to invest, because Make in India also means design and bring software and manufacturing together. That's the beauty of this country. It's so strong in software. All over the place, not only just in Bangalore, but many places in this country. So now you bring the hardware along with the software and combine that. And this is what is called Internet of Things, or how we call it in Germany, the fourth generation of manufacturing, bringing the real and the virtual world together.
Right.
And that's a big opportunity within the Make in India. Not just manufacture, but bring that together into a modern manufacturing automation.
So when you talk
way.
about this marriage between software and hardware, the software capabilities specifically in India, are you looking to beef that up or plug that via acquisitions?
Well, organic growth is always the matter of choice, because you develop it gradually. But M&A is also an opportunity, so all options are open. So we have a very clear plan in mind. We have a very clear strategy, which we discussed yesterday within the managing board and the local management, and so we will know exactly what we are going to do.
So are there numbers on the table in that 5-year plan that you put together for India? And could you share what the size of the business you anticipate could be in the next 5 years?
There are numbers on the table. There's a very clear concept. How exactly are we going to go, into the markets? There are milestones on the way, and as soon as we reach them, we're going to let the public know.
All right, let me ask you about what's happening as far as the global environment is concerned. You'd already said that 2015 was going to be a complex global business environment. 2015 for Siemens has been the year of operational consolidation. But have things changed since our last conversation 6 months ago? Because I'm looking at growth numbers and growth reports that are out. In fact, Moody's has just put out its report on the Asia-Pacific region this morning, and they've cut, whether it's India or China, and pretty much across the Asia-Pacific region. So how are you feeling now about the rest of 2015? Is it looking far worse than you had anticipated?
Well, I think the sentiment, the average sentiment in the global environment has gotten a bit softer. That predominantly has to do, of course, with some uncertainty about China. People just don't know how far it's going to go with the slowdown of the Chinese economy. And many economies and companies depend on the Chinese spending, so there is some uncertainty there. On the other hand, that was something which always kind of concerned me a lot, is the geopolitical environment. And that one has not really helped a lot. You have the Ukrainian crisis, the whole matter of ISIS in Syria, in the Middle East is not exactly helpful. So there are uncertainties in terms of the sentiment. And if people don't feel well about the prospects of the world, they just wait and see in terms of investment. And that's now spreading all across the world. And that sentiment needs to become back strong and say, this is where we want to go. There's got to be some optimist and activist type of entrepreneurial thinking, and that's exactly what we want to do in India.
So do you imagine that you will have to revise the forecast that you'd held out, because you'd expected revenue on an organic basis to remain flat year on year, but given the fact that you actually see the global situation looking softer or much worse than you had expected 6 months ago, are you likely to revise that?
Look, the nature of our business is a more long-term oriented cycle. So now it's early September, the fiscal year ends at 9:30. So either way, that obviously would not really impact the revenue in the P&L. If we talk about sentiment, then this sentiment, would first need to be a change in the order intake, or even take it one step earlier in the bidding process, in the sentiment on how we talk to each other about projects. So if sentiment changes, first you see the activity go slowing down in the sales consultancy activity, then the order would slow down, and then later at a point in time there would be an impact on revenue. So that's why sentiments change. They don't go straight to the P&L.
So how concerned and how worried would you be at this point in time, given the global context? Because I mean, it's not even the emerging markets that are coming to the rescue at this point in time. Even countries like China, as you yourself pointed out, have slowed down. One doesn't really know. Moody's is anticipating 6.3 for China. China itself is saying 7.2. So how would you factor in all of this as far as your business is concerned?
Well, look, there are several ways of looking at the business. One is you listen to the analysts and economists on the average temperature of the world. The other option, and this is what we prefer, is that we talk to our customers.
And what are your customers telling you today? Are they spending?
Some do and some don't. And that's why I said earlier in the year that the overall global environment remains complex because there is a slowdown in sentiment, there is geopolitical crisis, but then on the other hand there's a lot of opportunities. So we need to find the bright spots. We need to reallocate the resources to where it makes a lot of sense to grow, like in India, like the United States. Some parts of Europe are still pretty strong. Think about Germany in the car industry. So it's a very different picture all over the world. So there's a lot of opportunities, and there's a slowdown in some areas, and we need to reallocate our resources.
So when you're talking about reallocating your resources to find the bright spots or chase the opportunities, besides India and the US, what would be the other bright spots that you're focusing on, or that you will focus on?
It depends really on the countries. I wouldn't go after big regions. We just landed a huge order in Egypt. Could be as much as €8 billion for one single, major energy project. So there are those bright spots. We just need to find them, and that's why it's so important to go to countries, to go like we did now, to go to India with the whole managing board, listen to our people, where the opportunities are, how we allocate the resources, how we talk to our customers, find joint projects such as PPP, public-private partnerships. So there are opportunities, and we need to find them.
Time for a break, but when we return, we continue our conversation with Joe Kaeser, the global CEO of Siemens.